What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions podcast, which actually be switching that up in the near future. Stay tuned. We'll be focusing more on the PE side of things. Been talking to a lot of you guys lately, a lot of coaching calls, a lot of insight into, why it is that I really got this podcast started and what I really want to do as far as moving it into the right direction. Judging just based off of the questions that I'm getting from a lot of you guys, I do want to dive deeper into the penis enlargement side of things, specifically, progressive overload, workout breakdowns. I'm hearing a lot of guys talk to me and ask me about like, hey, what should I be doing for my workout program? What's the best way to go about it? So today I'm going to focus predominantly on penis pumping and what you should do to kind of get ahead when it comes to penis pumping, right? Because a lot of guys, they'll start off and they're like, hey, the recommended is this, and this is what should I go with this? Should I do more? What do you recommend? So the thing that I'm going to say first and foremost, the recommendations when it comes to penis pumping, if it's something completely foreign to you that you've never done before in your life, I would follow the recommendations that are offered by, be it LA Pump, be it Kaplan Pumps, be it whatever protocol that you may have been given. They are recommending that for a reason. Now, over time, you will find that it's just not going to do the job for you completely. What I mean by that is usually 1 to 5 minute sets is not going to suffice, but that depends on where you are, and it's very different from when you are starting off, right? Especially when you're doing PE as the first form of any type of workout that it is that you're doing. So if you're doing PE for the first time ever, and the first thing that you're jumping into is something as intense as penis pumping, follow the regulations, follow the guides, do the 1 minute, do the 90 seconds, do whatever it is that they recommend. But eventually over time, you will have to evolve into something that's a little bit more intense, right? So what I would recommend right off the hop is definitely do something like, I'd say a 5 minute set. So if you are starting off with a 1 minute, 90 second, that's solid, but eventually you do want to graduate into being into the cylinder for at least 5 minutes. The other thing that I would recommend too is do a pulse pumping session. Now, if you're starting off with the pressure that's usually between, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, I find that that's usually a little bit too light. And eventually you do want to move into the 5 to 10 area. And the reason for that is that it will force you to basically have that crazy expansion, and it's going to mimic the amount of pressure that your penis should feel during a normal erection, right? So what you're doing essentially when it comes to penis pumping is creating like an artificial erection, right? Because that vacuum is creating that erection. And originally when it was created, it was for guys with the ED, and then they would, transfer the dick out and make sure they had their cock ring handy, and they would jump right into the sack with their lady and, get to business. The difference now, though, is if you're doing it for the expansion more from the PE side of things, you want to make sure that you are creating that pressure that will basically kind of create, I would say priapismic kind of an environment, but you don't really want priapism, but you are basically creating an artificial erection in order to create max expansion within said state. You want to make sure that your penis can expand to the max, which will lead to growth, right? So in order for it to lead to growth, you have to have the appropriate amount of pressure, right? So again, starting off, do whatever it is that they recommend. Over time, get it to about 5 minutes. Later on, even 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you can do. For myself, like I said before, I like 15 to 20 minute sets, take my dick out, light jelks, nothing too intense, right? And the jelks that I do, like I said before, it's kind of a controversial topic depending on who it is that you ask. Again, my jelks are more like a soft massage, right? And I'm in that cylinder and then I pop it out, make sure that in between those sets, it's more than anything to get circulation going. Because yes, you may have blood inside of the penis during the time that you are pumping, but that blood is kind of stagnant, right? It's not the same. It's kind of like that's what happens to your dick essentially when you have an erection, right? The blood stays locked in. So you want to make sure the blood can kind of go out, right? Lose a little bit of the erection, let the blood out, and you let new fresh blood in, oxygenated, and let it lead to that expansion, right? And then you will jump in again. Now, in regards to pressure, like I mentioned before, you do want to experiment a little bit with pulse pumping. Experimenting with pulse pumping will make it so that you can see what you can tolerate and kind of see where you're at, right? Again, this is all about experimentation and seeing where you are. You have to be basically the master of your destiny in this situation, especially because you have to see, how much you can tolerate. Now, when you discover that, let's say you've been doing about 3, and you're able to get to about 5, you can experiment with like 6 or 7. Like I'll go up to 10 and it's not an issue, guys. The reason why it's not an issue is because I've been doing it for a little while. I did pulse pump, I did experiment, I did see where it kind of, how did it feel? And for myself, honestly, when I get to 10, I feel extremely comfortable. And sometimes I will go up to 15, not for long though, not for long. That's, I'll pulse pump up to there. And the most I usually stay at 15 is about 90 seconds. The other thing that I failed to mention right up the get-go, right off the hop, is you want to get a gauge, right? So I do talk to a lot of you guys, and I've been talking to some guys out there who tell me, hey, the pump that I got, whether it's a generic brand or like, let's say, what was the one, like the Bathmate, great pumps, right? Even the exerciser pump that I have, it's great, right? Bathmate, awesome, sure. Do you think that their size is a little bit too large, like I mentioned before? But you want to get something with the gauge. Whatever gets tracked gets managed, and it will be managed appropriately, right? The other thing that I mentioned is always have the journal, take pictures now. I mean, the beauty of this the world that we live in is that you can basically put everything into that Google Drive now, which is just nuts. I keep my pictures for the most part in an Apple Notes section in my phone. And from there, I kind of just see whenever there's progress. When there's not a lot of progress, I don't really, take pictures of like, okay, I didn't make any changes. I'll just measure that for myself. The beauty of the cylinders, when it comes to the Love cylinders in particular, is that they have the centimeters and the inches on both sides. So you can always track to see if you are making length gains, which is nice. But more than anything, pumping is for the expansion. Now, going back to the progressive overload side of things, you want to make sure that you can track the amount of pressure that you are basically placing upon your penis, right? Like you got to know how much pressure there is in there, because if you don't and you're kind of going in there blindly, some days you might do a little bit more, some days a little bit less, and there's no way for you to really gauge where you're at. So again, I would highly recommend get the gauge. I would also highly recommend have a journal. Basic journal, it doesn't have to be anything too complicated. There are some apps, if I'm not mistaken, where you can even track that as well. But again, if you just take a basic notebook, again, the shitty thing is kind of like, I know your hands are gonna be full of lube, but if you just make a mental note and you just jot that down quickly on a piece of paper, or again, I just use pretty much my iPhone notes for everything now. And that's the way that I would go about it, just so you know where you stand, because that's the key thing that you got to keep in mind. Whatever you are doing, and if you want it to progress or go into the right direction, you want to make sure that you have some type of way to journal or follow what it is that you're doing. That way you can track your progress. You can also see, okay, like I tried, 6 when I was in the cylinder and it was just too much. The PSI was just way too high, or inches over mercury, whichever you prefer. And you're just like, no, you know what? I'm going to step it back 4, and then you can see how much time you actually need. But when it comes to progressive overload, you need to know where you stand currently, set some goals, some targets, and just kind of assess from there and basically go on adding either more pressure or more time, right? Because that's what's ultimately going to lead to the gains that you're looking for, right? And that's basically it when it comes to progressive overload. But you do want to make sure that you have the gauge first and foremost, right? If you don't have the gauge, you're going to be up shit's creek, unfortunately. So make sure you get the gauge, make sure you track it, make sure you experiment with the pressures as well. And again, you can go up to 20 minutes even. I talked to some guys that go all the way up to half an hour. So it truly depends on who you are, where it is that you want to take it to, and just what that means for you, right? So everybody is built differently. You do want to work on it. I view it more as a conditioning type thing. So view it from the perspective that best serves you and what it is that you're trying to get out of PE, right? For myself, some guys, they just want to see max expansion and they want to just pack their cylinders because it's more of a fetish type thing, something that they enjoy. If you are looking to make gains and expand your penis to the absolute max, but you want to keep them gains, right? Then I would recommend that you go about it this way, right? Progressive overload, which is either the time in the cylinder or the amount of pressure in the cylinder. Track that, increase that over time, break it down in sets. In between sets, remember, you always want to go for circulation. You want to get fresh, beautiful, oxygenated blood into your cock and go from there, right? Over time, when you do graduate to a bigger cylinder, another question that came up, the one way that I would go about it is basically, if you can pack your cylinder in less than about 5 minutes, then yeah, you should 100% graduate to something bigger. But if your dick is looking like the Michelin Man, then you should probably pause, right? A lot of guys will fall in love with the expansion of their penis and just seeing the fact that, like, let's say at its fattest, it's about 7.5 inches of girth. And I'm speaking out of experience because I did this too. And you just keep pumping and pumping away. But all you're really getting is fluid buildup, a lot of edema. It's really not doing a whole lot as far as actual expansion goes. A rule of thumb that I live by is if your penis is vascular, aesthetic, and doesn't look overly almost like an obese penis, with like no veins, no structure whatsoever, maybe, just call it quits for the day. But when you come out of the cylinder, and let's say you're about half an inch bigger in expansion, depends on who you are, but you still have an aesthetic, big, juicy, hard looking cock, vascular, then you are doing it correct, in my opinion. And you should continue going about that direction. But again, if you're getting to that fully expanded state in less than about 10 minutes, 5 minutes, then yeah, you should definitely graduate to something a little bit bigger. I would go with 0.1 and a quarter, 1.25 inches every single time that you do graduate to a bigger cylinder, and just kind of go from there. And then when you're packing that as well, then you graduate from there once again. And again, this is just progressive overload. And the thing to keep in mind is that when you are penis pumping, it's a girth workout more than anything. Obviously, it will cause great expansion when it comes for length. And the other thing that I was going to touch on quickly is that if you want something that's going to basically give you the best flaccid gains immediately, pretty much, and basically something that will give you just great flaccid gains, over time, pumping reigns supreme, in my opinion. Nothing, in my opinion, beats pumping. It's mainly because your cock is expanded, right? Obviously, length and girth. And the thing is, you have the added weight to it, which causes it to hang a lot lower, which is wonderful if you are looking for bigger flaccid gains, which I am, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys are as well, because hey, who doesn't want a bigger cock all around, right? Obviously, for erectile size, it does take longer, but it is possible. You just got to give yourself enough time. Newbies, you guys are lucky, 3 to 6 months. Veterans, you're gonna have probably a heavier workload, but when you do get there, it does work, right? And obviously for guys that are veterans, that's more clamping combined with pumping and jelking. I find that combining these 3 different modalities is what leads to the most gains when it comes to making girth gains, right? Again, if you guys got any questions, be sure to click the link in the description. This will take you to the Calendly link. We can talk for half an hour, any questions that you guys got. And again, if you guys have any coaching questions, I might as well. I've been working on this project for a little while, but I am now doing my fat loss coaching, right? So bodybuilding, but at the same time, we can talk PE, right? And we're going to focus on the 2 things. Going to have the workout built for you along with the fat loss and muscle building program. If you guys got any questions about that, be sure to DM me. Use all the links in the description and we'll go from there. All right, guys, we'll see you guys in the next episode.